Hey, everybody, and welcome back. The second media theory that we're going to talk about is behaviorism and positivism. So, we're still in around the same point in history, the time when people are moving out of the country into cities, and we're starting to really love our science, certainty, and control, right? So, behaviorism and positivism emerged during a time when we were really concerned with science, with certainty, and with being able to control our world. So, again, with everybody moving into urban centers, you have a rise in crime. You have expanding bureaucracies, and we know how much we love a good bureaucracy. And you have a desire to protect and try to manage human behavior because during this time we love our science so much, we're distrustful of emotions, of subjective experiences, and of personal narratives. So, in positivism, which is not positivism like when someone says the word be positive or toxic positivity, not the same kind of positivism. In this type of positivism that we're talking about, if it can't be measured, it doesn't matter. So you can see how the emotions get excluded here. Positivism is a philosophical approach that argues that reality exists totally independent of perception. Truth can be discovered through observation and measurement. Objectivity is superior to subjectivity. Science should eliminate all bias, all emotion, all interpretation. So, numbers in this type of a system feel a lot safer than individual stories. Data feels more reliable than feelings. Statistics feel more truthful than one person's lived experience. And emotions are treated like noise that are distracting from the true point. So, in behaviorism, which is kind of the companion theory we're looking at, you have a psychological approach that builds upon positivism. So, some of the assumptions behaviorism has is that human behavior can be observed objectively. Internal thoughts and emotions are irrelevant and unknowable. What really matters is the stimulus and resulting response. Behavior can be shaped through reward and punishment. And in this view, a person is not so much a meaning maker as they are a reactor. So, how these theories work together. Positivism gives you the method, and behaviorism provides the model. So, together, they create a framework where humans are legitimate objects of study, emotion is stripped away, inner experience is irrelevant, reduced down to measurable variables. This pairing is extremely attractive, as you can imagine, to scientists, institutions, and bureaucracies because it gives at least the illusion, if not the guarantee, of prediction, control, and certainty. And if there's anything we know about ourselves as humans, it's that, my goodness, do we love some certainty? So, crime becomes a perfect fit for theory like this because crime is a measurable statistic. Measure the arrests, convictions, sentences, recidivism rate. Crime becomes a behavior, not a story, an outcome, not a process, and it's a statistic, n- less of a human experience. So, media absorbs this logic, and crime reporting began to prioritize what, when, why, who, and how. So that fits very much into journalism environments. So you can see behaviorism at work when crime media implies that exposure to violence causes violence, bad environments produce bad people, certain traits predict criminality, or that deviance is contagious. So here are the behaviors that come out of this sense of logic: profiling, stereotyping, predictive narratives, and fear-based generalizations. Empathy, which is actually what we're studying this week, would completely complicate a prediction. Part of the emotions that are set to the side. When we only measure, we experience a critical loss. When we only measure behavior, we lose the motivation, the context, any hint of neurodiversity, trauma, structural inequities, and emotional collapse. And we stop asking questions about, what did this person who perpetrated this crime experience? What pressures were they under? What meaning did this event have? And instead, we replace it with, what variable failed? What risk factor can we apply here? This is not neutral. It is, in fact, reducing people to numbers. And so there are, in fact, some ethical dilemmas here. For example, in the 1970s, Ford invented the Pinto. If you weren't alive in the 70s, the Ford Pinto was a great little subcompact car and kind of shaped like a pinto bean to a certain extent. And it was hugely popular, but it had this problem. And the problem was the gas tank was in the back of the car. So if you had a rear end collision, you would go boom. Well, it came out that behaviorism and positivism, they really enjoy cost-benefit analysis, where we take the emotion out and we're just dealing with logic here, folks. We're just dealing with logic. Well, here's where that goes wrong. It turns out that Ford had put a value on human life when it was doing its cost-benefit analysis. And if I'm remembering right, $200,000 was the value they put on a human life. And then they spread that across all the parts. So when they were deciding, should we fix this, or is it not a big enough deal for us to fix it? Because obviously we don't even make cars that 100% preserve human life. So everyone is going to have some kind of way of calculating, if our product causes death, at what point do we need to? Does the risk of not fixing it become too high? And for them, human life was calculated at $200,000. Well, when the public learned this, they were really upset that human life was being reduced to a dollar amount. So part of this dilemma, when we take all the emotion out, is you're taking the humanity out. It felt inhumane to people that there would be a dollar value assigned to human life. And so I guess, in a way, that would be my question to you. What value would you assign to human life? So think, for example, nowadays, what we deal with is we have people who text and drive. And when they text and drive, they get in accidents. But we haven't eliminated cell phones, and we haven't eliminated your ability to take a call or text while you're in a car. And we could do that. We could make it where whenever that's happening, there's no way you can't. We could block it. We could do all these things, but we don't do that. Why? Because if human life is a sacred value and we're not able to put a dollar amount on it and it's absolutely sacred, then you would think that we would enact every single law to preserve human life. So why don't we do that? Well, somewhere there's a cost-benefit analysis that is telling us or guiding us, or there is a cell phone lobby, or there are political reasons why this isn't happening. So do you agree with behaviorism and positivism that there is, in fact, a financial price tag you can put on human life? So that's something to think about. So these frameworks of behaviorism and positivism, and even the one we studied before, the mass media theory, they're creating all of these theories create emotional distance between themselves and the problem. It's only when you start learning about Ford's Pinto in the gas tank and actual humans dying that all of a sudden that distance is closed. You're like, wait a minute, I don't think that's okay. But when we're just talking about a structure of logic to make decisions, you're like, yeah, let's get the emotion out of it until it's your family member who is in the Pinto driving and gets in a collision. Then there is very little moral distance between you and what's happening. So, if crime is a behavior and behavior is measurable and measurements are neutral, then suffering, human suffering, becomes secondary, as we see. Victims become statistics, offenders are data points, and this distance feels really objective and scientific and highly educated. But I would argue that that distance is also a choice that we are making. And I'm not sure it's the right choice because mental illness is a thing. And these statistics that crime reporting reports on, these are real people and these are real families who are missing their loved ones. And I don't think empathy is necessarily a bias, which is what behaviorism and positivism would say. I think it's possible for you to fully hold someone accountable and also fully empathize. So, behaviorism and positivism often ask the question, how do we eliminate subjectivity? And I would argue that this course is asking you a different question, which is, how do we understand subjectivity responsibly? Empathy is not the way theories would treat it. It's not contamination of data. Empathy is essential to the human experience. So there are some things, however, that these theories get really right. Things like being able to consolidate data can reveal patterns, it can expose inequity, and it can also challenge anecdotal biases that we might have. The problem is not that we're measuring it. The problem is that we're measuring it without including meaning making. And I think measurement can be one part and it can be done without emotion. If then after that, you also view what you're viewing through a lens of empathy and you put the humanity back in. So if you're ever doing major communication, you're the communication officer for a major company and you're dealing with statistics that are not great and involve human death, dismemberment, or any harm to a human, I think that it would behoove you to put the empathy back in and really look at what you're sending out and is it sensitive to these dynamics. So, why does all this matter? Because sometimes when we hear crime reporting, even in a documentary, it can sound really clinical. So when you start watching a documentary and you see emotions are being minimized, mental illness is flattened, empathy feels foreign, know that something is missing, and what's missing is the humanity. So we've covered mass society theory, which talks about the monster narrative. And now we also have behaviorism and positivism that explains sometimes why our crime reporting sounds a little bit cold and artificial. All right. And I'll see you in our next lecture.